there's always going to be a human element of this, right? Sense making, does not get outsourced to a machine. Definitely. There's definitely some database interpretation. That for me is not sense making. Sense making exactly what you touched on. How does this work in different cultural environments? What does this actually do to people? So very interesting that we actually share one part of the Vietnamese history maybe you're not aware of. But one of the biggest heroes in Vietnamese history when it was quite big, dance of today would be China, was that after, in a very epic battle, actually for a change, the Vietnamese won against the Chinese. Then the emperor or the king of Vietnam says, let's attack more. And the general said, no, let's apologize for winning yesterday. Sent them all the concubines, sent them all the gold and all the things to apologize for us winning yesterday. Is that called an appeasement policy? Absolutely, because right now in the long run, they could have not won. And that's why the Chinese emperor said, okay, when the Vietnamese king is just the king of my southern part of China. So the word Vietnam in Chinese is called Vietnam, which means the southern province. So that's why. So I think often you can actually really think the battle, but you need to think about the moment. And warfare is always a bad thing. They're never real winners in war. So when it comes to the leadership. But actually, I want to go back to something I thought really interesting about the perceptions and data and people. Do you think that draw a little bit of a bridge of what happens today when it comes to us having an image to let's say something ongoing to the events where we lack the data or we maybe not interpreting the data in the right way? I think that's a common pattern. I mean, human beings are I think not intrinsically motivated to study data to come up with decisions. And especially on topics that are more emotionally loaded, you're probably less likely to take a fact-based decision. But if we go to business, which hopefully we can sometimes leave the emotions out. And I know there are business meetings that are very heated, lots of discussions, but if you really kind of focus on the business outcome, you should be able to get to facts. Now, what I find interesting in the day and age that we live in, like 2,500 years late after the war that we spoke about earlier, we have a lot of the data. We have a lot of it at our fingertips. We don't even have to aggregate it. There's machine computing doing it for us. It's even taking care of some raw interpretation that kind of reassemble the data. You don't even have to cleanse it. It goes and finds it. So I think we live in a day and age where there is no data scarcity. There's actually data abundance.
Absolutely.
And it's all about making sense out of that data and using it to your best advantage. I think you and I work for SAP, so that's a company that has a lot of data assets. The new gold or the new oil of the era, right? We've been talked about it a lot in the past. Is at the disposal of a lot of companies. I just think we're not fully cognizant. Like the opportunity is so much greater than the actual leverage I think businesses have today when it comes to like really kind of harnessing data and relating it to processes, to RPT systems, to how they steer, how they operate, and ultimately how they really drive change and behavioral aspects of how people work. I think it's super exciting times to be at that business because when Leonidas and Sextus were trying to figure out how to win this war, and none of that. They didn't have the data, they didn't have processes, they definitely didn't have any applications or IT, and they had people. And the people were like following them till the very end. This was their strong. Today we have way more. We have our strong people, but we have so much more to make the outcome of those people even more impactful for businesses and ultimately for our society.
Yeah, obviously they didn't have IT. They did have tools in terms of weapons, and they also had different processes like phalanx, different techniques and such, and taking into account the environmental aspects, torches or canyons or whatever, right? But when you come to today's image, let me, for the sake of the argument, take the topic of data in the world. Well, definitely it's not. Number one,
it's a natural scarcity which goes away. Oil, that's cheap, but data is just going to go more. So you're absolutely right. Now we have the abundance of data, making sense of it. My question is now we are going into the philosophical. Is sense a universal thing, or will it be something defined by us humans? Meaning, this makes sense today, this doesn't make sense in a different country, in a different cultural context, or maybe also in the 10 years. What is your take on that?
I think that's a really interesting question, and you're right, it's a little bit philosophical, but the way I see this is there's always going to be a human element of this, right? Sense making, I hope, does not get outsourced to a machine. There's definitely some database interpretation. That for me is not sense making. Sense making, exactly what you touched on. How does this work in different cultural environments? What does this actually do to people? You can sometimes have a very factual conclusion to it, but when you execute it, only the human element will know whether the person on the other side will react to it one way or the other. And I don't believe that this is something you can actually train the machine to do at scale today. But there's a lot of, obviously, assisted sense making, which is more in the business context. It's based on trained patterns, especially for like mundane tasks. So let's say you're like a service agent, you want to optimize the call engine type. I'm pretty sure there's a lot to be done with the help of technology-based sense making. But here we really kind of could replace someone who kind of helps at the emergency call, that helps like desperate students, kids, whoever is in trouble. You think that could be done and handled by a robot at some point? Maybe at some point. I think that's really far away. That type of sense making, the human element, is pretty far away. And sense making, that is about what is the next best action, what is the right pattern to respond to this type of inquiry when it's in a business context. If it's trained by a model, I think that we already see. And you're right. There is no oil analogy. I'm actually fully with you. It's not that that's something that has that it's kind of going down in terms of the residual resources, right? I mean, oil and gas have residual resources that are just going down. The good thing about data is exactly the opposite. So I think we will close that gap in some areas that we're not expecting to close today. When it comes to sense making of topics, themes that might look very far out today, for us to trust a machine to just kind of take care of that task. But my first wish is that we stay close to the human side of it as long as possible, both in the business and in our personal lives and in our side. I think that's I think Elon Musk even kind of displayed AI as one of the biggest threats to humanity because of that, because it takes care of this. No. And all of the sense making is purely trusted to machines. We become a person. And it's a good place. Right? So, or we have to redefine what it means to be human. If you ask me personally, to be quite honest, I think like the example of phone assistants, I think actually machines can do it. But by the time machines can do it, the problems of the humans are like different, and that the machine cannot do it again. Because it has to be trained on
exactly. So therefore, I think that the issues might not be about bad grades at school, because actually they have an AI tutor already. Maybe their problems would be Mani's AI was actually bullying my AI, and these are going to be real human issues. And then therefore there's another aspect of the contextualization. But the estimation, that's just really, really interesting times.
Look to you how we went from 2,500 years ago to basically a glimpse into the future that you and I cannot predict. Absolutely. Did you ever have such a long lifespan of your podcast covering thousands of years?
Not yet, but again, it's a special one. That's not a 300.
It's 300, right?
Well, thanks a lot, Mani. I think we have to continue it, and let's not wait until 400 or 500. We will find some funny numbers. I'm actually thinking of 314. That might be a good.
Sounds good. I come back
after that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.